Welcome to Coach's Bench on Mix 104.1. Week number 11 of the high school football season. Blue Raiders are in Jefferson County tonight, taking on a very good Jefferson County team, 9-1 on the year. Coach's Bench with Coach Tygard each and every week on Mix 104.1 during the football season. We want to thank Mark Smith and everybody associated with the local McDonald's restaurants for bringing you Coach's Bench each week. Coach, I also have to thank CHS Live, Dale Halfacre and his group for producing this program each week and sending it to Austin Chadwick at the station. To me, tonight is a reward that was a goal, I think, at the beginning of the summer to be a playoff team. So I think one goal has been met tonight.
Yeah, I guess we were picked preseason 5th in our region, so we picked to not make the playoffs. They picked us to probably win 3, 4, 5 games. So we had a good regular season, but then it kind of starts all over, and you got to make a playoff run. And unfortunately, when you're the 4 seed, you got to go to a 1 seed. And Jefferson County's 9-1 and got their best team in 20 years. They host their first home playoff game in 20 years, and they've broken a bunch of school records this year. And so it's going to be a tough challenge, but this is probably one of the best first-round playoff games in the state. So, because this is a chance where a 4 seed actually has a chance against a 1 seed, we match up pretty well with them. So there'll be a lot of eyes on this game.
And also, another goal would be met tonight to me, and I think to everybody involved with Cleveland. It's been a while since Cleveland's won a playoff game. That would be sweet.
Yeah, so it's been 9 years since we won a playoff game. So that's been the goal since us and all the new coaches and the staff got here. We can tell this week and last week, kind of after the game, Cleveland's not necessarily used to going to the playoffs, because I had a bunch of people say like, "Hey, good season, coach," and I tell them, "Hey, we're still playing," and everybody's like, "Well, man, you made the playoffs, great job, like great year," but at the same time, all of our guys, like, we're making the playoffs really wasn't some sort of big accomplishment. At the places we'd come from, it was kind of more, if you make the quarterfinals, that was kind of the standard, and then you're fighting like crazy from quarter semis and state championships. But that's been the goal for us, is to win playoff games, get to the quarterfinals, and then everybody's trying to match up with Murfreesboro in the semis. So that's been the thing.
Coach, I don't know. I'm going to ask you how you feel, but to me, it's pure pleasure when I prove somebody wrong. They predict this, and the opposite happens. And you hit the nail on the head when you said, some people expected 3, 4 wins this year. So I'm just smiling big that
but
those people missed it.
Honestly, preseason predictions, they don't mean anything.
Right.
It all based on when we were coming in, everything. Nobody knew about us. They didn't know about me or my staff, or this kind of crazy system we're going to run. And we had a lot of players graduate from last year's team. We did have a group of 18 solid seniors coming back, which has helped us tremendously this year, obviously, because they bought in quickly. But all this preseason stuff and rankings, it don't matter at all. It ends up getting settled on the field, and that's what the playoffs are for. I think this playoff run is going to be wild, not just including our game, because there's not really that dominant team. Oakland in the past has always been dominant. Maryville has always been dominant. Right. And they've met in the semifinals, I think, 10 or 12 or 15 straight years. And where this year, Oakland just got upset by Riverdale last week and on a 2-point conversion. Maryville's dropped some games. They kind of turned it around against us, unfortunately, but then lost to Farragut last week. Farragut doesn't make the playoffs, which is rare for there. Bradley's riding high right now, but they've got a tough playoff run. And so I won't be shocked if at all levels there's a bunch of different upsets in games that people don't predict happen this playoffs.
Makes it interesting.
Yep.
If we played it on paper, how much fun is that? We'll take our first break on Coach's Bench with Coach Tygard. We'll be back right after this.
This is 100% fresh beef, with 2 slices of melted cheese, pickles, onions, ketchup, and mustard. This is a burger that strongly suggests you take a seat. It marks its territory, leaving behind a graveyard of napkins, and won't be contained by a humble sesame seed bun. This is the Quarter Pounder with cheese.
Coach Tygard, to me, last week was a good game in the respect you won. You had to win. The team, to me, didn't feel any effects in the Hardin Valley game from losing a close one to Bradley the week before, big rival game. A minute to go in the game, you're down only 3. So I didn't see any carryover from the Bradley loss to last week. And also, I didn't, from the press box, I didn't see a team that was thinking totally about tonight and not the goal at hand, which was to beat Hardin Valley.
Yeah, so because Farragut beat Maryville, we had to beat Hardin Valley to get in the playoffs. So luckily, we knew that was a chance of happening. We didn't think Farragut was going to beat Maryville, but glad we put in a lot of effort on Hardin Valley. I thought the first half we played great. We went really fast. We used all the different sorts of formations, and we got from spread offense with LJ playing quarterback to Chase coming in and playing quarterback on the first drive, or Chase Stevens, and then we also got in some single wing, and Micah played some quarterback, and so we were kind of running different personnel groups on and off the field. Trent Collins scored a touchdown because he was completely uncovered.
Great.
That was the first drive of the second half, but Hardin Valley really had no answer for how fast we were going with all the different formations. In the second half, we did not play great at all. I think it became more just kind of surviving injuries and trying to get to the playoffs, and I kept trying to get to a running clock and was getting frustrated because we kept having to delay this thing, and we had to play kids to the very end of the game, which you shouldn't do. But it goes back to we're learning how to win. Earlier in the season, you blow out a Red Bank team or Ray County, and all the JV players are kind of acting a fool on the sidelines and not taking it serious. And then the same difference is you're playing Hardin Valley guys, like it's the week before the playoffs. Get to the running clock, take all the starters out. But if you can't get to that point, everybody got to play to the end of the game. And we kind of got some bumps and bruises in the game, which we weren't thrilled about in the second half. So that's a lesson learned for next year, and because we're going to have the same schedule. And so if this last game against Hardin Valley is the way that it should be, then we should be able to play and get some kids out.
Absolutely. Everybody knows what the quarterback does, the running back, receivers, etc. Who had a good game on the O-line or the D-line last week?
A.J. Westfield obviously he was the best player on the field. Defensively, I think he had 12 and a half tackles, which for a defensive lineman is extremely unheard of. He's a sophomore that's growing up a lot. I mean, he's got a chance to be really special. We've got a bunch of sophomores, that sophomore group. Sawyer Boyd caught his first touchdown pass. He reminds me a lot of the tight end we had at Blackman, Ben Marshall, that signed with Cal. He's had a better sophomore year than Ben did. At Blackman, Trent Collins, as a junior, scored his first touchdown. Chase Stevens threw 2 touchdown passes in the first half.
Right.
His first touchdown passes, he's a sophomore. And so we're starting to see that sophomore group. You've had a whole season, so you're not really considered a sophomore anymore, and start to get brought up. We're trying to get some more kids in the game. We don't play a lot of players. We only play 30 players total, including offense, defense, special teams, and we really only play 21 players on offense and defense. And so it's almost like the Benny Monroe days, the dirty 30 rolling up to Jefferson County, and everybody plays both ways, and we just don't have a lot of depth until we get our numbers built up over the next couple years.
But that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we got 42 kids on the freshman team that don't dress on Friday nights. We brought up some of the kids to practice with us. But until you see consistent 40 kids on the freshman team, and then 35 to 40 of them keep playing every year. The freshman team, we know, had a great year this year, and our futures team only lost 1 game. And so I think by doing that over the course of years, then we'll start to get to a 6A number. Right now we're not there, and honestly next year we might have to adjust some things just because of the bodies we have.
We'll take our second break and come back and finish with Coach's Bench in just a moment. Once again, thanks to CHS Live producing this program under the direction of Dale Halfacre. They're very kind in letting us use their great facilities each and every week, and we appreciate that very much. Coach Chandler Tygard is one of the busiest people you'd ever want to try to stay up with, catch up to, and still walk in his shoes, because the man's 24/7. Let's face it, he's high energy, he's 24/7, and I appreciate him working us in to his schedule each and every week. And so, Coach, I appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And Mark Smith and all the area McDonald's restaurants for sponsoring this broadcast, and everybody back at the station that makes it happen also. Coach, you mentioned Jefferson County a little bit in the opening comments. Can you add a little bit to that as far, you mentioned the running back, first time in 20 years or so they've had a home playoff game. Should be a great crowd. Hope a lot of Cleveland people are up there.
So there's only one set of stands, so it's similar to Bearden.
Oh,
yep. So and they're expecting 7,000 to 8,000 fans. So it's going to be a big game for them. So a little bit about Jefferson County. So they're 9-1, but this senior group actually has gone through a lot. Spencer Riley's the head coach there. I know him. He used to be the O-line coach at Tusculum, and he's been there, and this is now his 8th year. This senior group, they went through an 0-10 season as freshmen and then a 2-8 season as sophomores. They lost 18 straight games in a row, and now they're sitting 9-1 because they all stayed, they all played, they lifted weights, they got bigger and stronger, and they believed in what the team was doing. With Coach Riley, if you don't get on board, then you end up leaving. So they've had some of their talented players transfer to other schools in the Knoxville area, but the kids that are left, they've got 65 players that are hardcore Jefferson County Patriots. And we just happened to catch them on a really good year for them, to where it's the first time they've been undefeated in the region in 30 years. The first time they've had a running back rush for 1,000 yards 3 straight years in a row since the 90s. I can't remember. I showed our players, because they put it out on Twitter, how many records they've broken this year, and it's outrageous. I mean, you're talking 20 different records. And so this is the best team they've had in a long time, kind of like a small town feel, to where it's a generational deal, like you win a state championship and then 30 years later all your kids come through. That's kind of what's going on up there. And so it's going to take a big effort for us to go into that place and win. The best part about it, I guess, is that we play such a difficult region. We've been to Bearden, we've been to Farragut, we've been to other people's homecoming games when they've had a bunch of fans there.
That's not going to happen next year.
Maybe not, but so we've been in those environments. We've played, we scrimmaged all the way going back to the early in the season. We scrimmaged Baylor and McCallie and Chattanooga Christian and teams that won state championships and semifinals. So we've seen just as talented players. We've seen. This is one of the biggest teams we've seen, but, honestly, Bearden is 380 pounds at right guard, so we've seen a bigger team. We've seen Baylor McCallie's linemen. So we've seen it all at this point, but really it's just trying to get to where, the entire offense is in, but you only get, 40 to 50 plays.
Coach, to me, you're probably not only a football coach, you're a football historian. You know what happened up there 30 years ago. You know about the records they've set. Each and every opponent, when I've talked to you off the air this year, you practically, it would seem like you grew up there and went to school there because you knew everything about them. So you not only coach, you know exactly what they're doing or what they've done in the past.
Well, I think you have to do that. You have to understand the place that you're going, especially if you're playing on the road. When I first got to high school football, I didn't think that was as big of a deal. Coming from college, you just kind of get used to every place. But think about it, like if you're Tennessee and you're going to the Swamp, it's a totally different environment than if you're going to UT Martin to play. And so I think you need to research what goes on there, especially if you've never played there before. Like when I took the job here, one of the first things I did is I just drove to see, Walker Valley Stadium and Bradley Stadium and Ray County, and you just kind of get a feel for a place. And all the history is important because you need to know, like what does Coach Riley for Jefferson County, how does he build his team? Well, he's a former offensive lineman. He's a former O-line coach. They run the ball really well, so you can start to paint a picture of how they build their team. we use these YouTube videos all the time. Coach Jones has watched every single YouTube video that Coach Riley's ever had. And, you know, you can catch little things about kickoff coverage or kick return, or, you know, some frustration if they're returning the ball across the 50. Well, then, you know, Jefferson County on special teams, they're not known for kicking the ball deep. They do a bunch of pooch kicks, and they do some surprise onside kicks, kind of like we do. Right. And so you can kind of get in the mind of your opponent. And, you know, we did that the week before with Bradley, and you can kind of tell, you know, through the media, here's what they're thinking, and then, you know, occasionally you can slip something in there. So it's just about preparation. I mean, it's we don't get nervous in games just because we do an extensive background study on people. But Maryville does the same thing. A quick story on them. I had already left the state and was coaching in Alabama. I hadn't worked for Ravenwood for 3 years, but Maryville's calling me to get information on Ravenwood. Okay. And so these teams, when the really well-coached teams, they do deep background into who's calling plays, where they came from, what they think about, what they want to run. And so I think you have to take all that information into account and then try to make the best decisions on those 50 plays of offense, 50 plays of defense, and then all those different special teams, crazy situations that come up.
I told you he was 24/7. This show could be 3 hours, and he still would have some information that that we didn't get to. Coach, thanks a bunch, man. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Here's hoping for a Blue Raider win, and we'll do this program next week and be celebrating, hopefully, a big win over Jefferson County. And Terry Evans saying, hope to see you next week.
Go Raiders.